Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rise of the Phoenix. It has been a little while since I have done a faction deep dive video, so I figured it was about time to get around to the evil factions. This particular overview will be an Angmar faction overview slash deep dive, and I've been inspired to do this one by the Angmar players in my current Season 2 server. We are currently in a massive war against Angmar, and it has been a ton of fun. I want to give them all a shout out and say that I respect greatly how hard you guys have been resisting our attacks. The war has been dragging on and on. I don't know about anybody else. I've been having a blast. PvP in this game is way more fun than playing Farmville, so lots of respect to you guys. Any of you guys that end up watching this video, you have been awesome opponents. And with that out of the way, we'll roll the intro. But first, if you enjoy my content, please do consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Welcome back, everyone. We'll start off by talking about Angmar's faction bonus, which is plus 5% siege damage. Not one of the better faction bonuses in the game. I suppose in the early game it might let you save a little bit of stamina on killing forts or a fortress, maybe a little bit of stamina on taking a keep or some other objective. However, towards the mid and late game, when you're rolling around with multiple level 50 commanders, potentially Gothmog and Alchemists, Evil Side is just doing so much siege damage that it really doesn't matter that you're doing 5% more, because you always have way more than enough for whatever you're doing at that particular time. So not a great faction bonus in my opinion. For the evil side, at least for Angmar, I want to talk about commanders first, because I think your choice of commanders are going to impact the buildings, the troop buildings that you invest in. So as far as tier 1 commanders go, I cannot recommend Khaldun highly enough for Angmar. This guy is one of the best commanders in the game, definitely one of the best tier 1 commanders in the game, and Angmar's tier 4 unit are the Fallen, which really love tribal tactics. All evil men have a chance to gain follow-up, which is an extra attack. Every single round, they have a chance to proc an extra attack. This guy is also great with Fallen because of how much damage mitigation that he provides, and Fallen want to take hits and then hit back harder than they got hit. So really, overall, an excellent commander in general, but even better for Angmar because of their access to that tier 4 evil man unit. Other than him, I think Grima is another excellent choice. This guy is just, he's miserable to fight against, honestly. He has madness, probably the most consistent madness in the game. I feel like Sauron is probably the best madness, or technically Frodo and Sam, but Frodo and Sam suck. Probably the best single madness in the game, but the fact that Grima's is guaranteed and happens multiple times per combat, I think he is the most consistent source of madness. He also can inflict madness beyond those early rounds, so like the Horseman's Helm that a lot of people run on Theoden with anti-madness only affects the first 3 rounds. While that is going to shut down Grima's first instance of madness potentially, he still has 2 more activations of madness that go off in combat, so they can kind of get around that in a way that Sauron's madness cannot. Additionally, Gorebag is another respectable option. You are going to be using Orc units in the early game, and R5 Gorebag is one of the best Orc commanders in the game. He just has so many amazing buffs for Orcs. We'll click a few of his skills here. He's also a commander that is able to provide madness immunity and stun immunity simultaneously, because his Respect 5 title gives madness immunity at 15 and 15 points, and he can use a stun immunity helm, meaning your orcs are pretty much immune to crowd control. He also has access to some healing down here, which can help in the early game as well. He's generally able to hold his own in PvP. He's not going to be the kind of commander that can just dive into a stack of enemy armies and send 10 of them flying, but still very respectable tile taker and good for those early game orc units. And we'll also throw an honorable mention to Agzok. If you don't have access to alerts or don't like using alerts, he is another good tier 1 commander. He can do quite a lot of commander damage. Moving on to tier 2. Fortunately, I feel like Evil Side tier 2 is not that great, and I feel like my Evil Side faction deep dives are going to be very repetitive as far as tier 2 and tier 3 commanders go. You have alerts, everybody knows that guy is amazing. You should definitely invest in him, in my opinion. You have Gothmog, who is a very, very powerful tier 2 commander. Probably, I don't know, he might be the best T2. No, Gandalf the Grey is the best T2 in the game. I shouldn't say Gothmog's the best, but Gothmog is a phenomenal commander. You can take tiles with him, you can PvP with him, you can siege with him. He's good at anything you need him to do. I'll also give an honorable mention to the Shadow, as he is quite capable if you have good gear and respect 5+. He can do a ton of damage while also allowing his army to do very respectable damage. I've seen reports where like his army is hitting for 100 or 120k. He's hitting for 150 to 180k. Just massive damage output between him and his army. Kamul, in season 1, I liked Kamul, but in my opinion, in season 2, for some reason, Kamul just doesn't stack up. I think he's just not quite good enough to handle all of the Respect 5 Theodens and Respect 5 Gandalfs running around, whereas Lurtz and the Shadow can kill Gandalf, so like Kamul just kind of loses to Theoden and loses to Gandalf, and that's not where you want to be with the current metagame. And the rest of the commanders, honestly, I don't think I would recommend investing in them. Definitely don't use Grishnak. That guy's terrible. As far as tier 3 goes, pretty much every single evil faction, I'm going to recommend Sauron and the Witch King. The Witch King is probably the single strongest commander in the game. He is absolutely insane, especially if you have like whale level gear. There's just nobody that can stop this guy if he has a fully strengthened and refined Orthanc Devilry with the max damage roll. His alchemists just do way too much damage during those convener rounds. So definitely those two guys. And then an honorable mention for Angmar would go to the Black Serpent. He also has access to tribal tactics and is a good evil men commander in general. And Angmar does, like I said, have those tier 4 evil men units. This guy's a pretty underappreciated commander, in my opinion. Potentially a shout out to Kirun. Kirun is like the commander that everybody wants to love, but for some reason he just doesn't perform that well, in my experience. I mean, I haven't used him, but one of my good friends in this game, Kirun is his favorite commander, and the lengths he goes to make Kirun work well, it's just crazy to me. I have a lot of respect for him because of that, but through my long conversations with him about Kirun, it's just always a bit disappointing, unfortunately. And I suppose a shout out to the Undying. I feel like he's a little bit underappreciated as well. I think he's quite solid with Fallen, but I mean, he's just not near Witch King or Sauron. Those are definitely so strong that you'd kind of be remiss to invest a whole ton of money into Kirun or Undying when that could be going into the Witch King or Sauron. But if you want to be a cool kid, a special snowflake type person, like I tend to be in games, I like to use stuff that's not overused. Those would be potentially some options for you to pick. Now let's talk about the troops. Which troops do you want to invest in the early game? And like I said, that's going to be based a lot on your commanders. If you have orc commanders like Gorbag, Gothmog, Mouth of Sauron, you can really just stick with orc units. Arbalests are a very respectable unit. Reapers, in my opinion, are the best infantry unit in the game. These guys are absolutely insane and phenomenal. I know a lot of people love alchemists. I have a hot take. If you've made it this far into the video, I think Reapers are actually better than alchemists. Yep, I said it. Reapers are better than alchemists. Raiders are a fine unit as well. You'll be able to take whatever tiles you need with the orc units, throw in crushers for good measure and a tanky frontline unit, and you can excel with orcs. If you have the Witch King or you want to use the Shadow, any of the Nazgul, and you want to do fire damage, obviously alchemists are a great choice. Your Angmar, you get access to them quite early, so that's super nice. I will say, if you do the orc thing, I would also invest at least into brawlers as kind of a holdover melee unit until you can get to brutes and crushers. Once you get brutes and crushers, you really want those guys to be your front line, protecting your relatively fragile arbalests. And then you can throw in Reapers for good measure if you're doing the orc thing. If you're doing burn damage, you can also look to pick up Corsairs. Unfortunately, as Angmar, your eastern quarters is the last quarters that you get, so all of your evil men units come late. However, if you're going to have like Black Serpent and Khaldun as two of your primary commanders, then you can invest in all of these buildings as well. So as far as the evil side goes, I think it's really, really high dependent. If you want to use burn damage, Witch King and the other Nazgul, then you're going to want to invest in alchemists plus some sort of frontline. Berserkers are an excellent choice. If you want to use orcs, then just unlock your orc units. For taking tiles, I really don't like trolls. However, eventually you will probably want trolls for PvP to help protect your fragile alchemists. I just find that they're so resource intensive and take so long to train that when you're grinding out tiles, you just run out of them. And they have never felt particularly efficient for me for taking tiles. Let's talk about our position on the map as our final point in this video. So in Season 1, this is a super messy map. I just made an account. I actually picked up one of my old accounts. I think this is one of the first accounts I played the game on, actually. Fun fact. Picked up this account through an Angmar for the purposes of this video. But let's talk about their starting position. In Season 1, you're actually in a pretty precarious position, and that is because Gundabad is like a 160 or a 280 keep. You can take it super easily, which means Lothlorien can come up and threaten you from the north, and Erebor can come over from the east and threaten you from that way. Both of those are very popular factions in Season 1. In Season 2, this got changed to a 1000, and then in Season 3, this is its own faction. So in Season 2, I think you're actually in a pretty nice starting position. Your eastern flank is essentially walled off between Gundabad and Moria and Rivendell. There's a whole bunch of tunnels and crossings and just all kind of shenanigans in here. People really don't want to spend the early game most of the time capturing all this, sieging all this down and popping out and hitting you, when they would rather just pick up stuff in the center of the map. And Erebor is not going to be able to just bum rush west and attack you like they could in Season 1, because they have this 1000 keep sitting here that nobody's going to be able to take for like 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Kind of depends on your server, depends on how many wars there are, depends on how many whales there are. And then to your west, you have Linden, Arnor, and Isengard, all three of which are relatively unpopular factions most of the time, which means there's a ton of land over here in the west. You can eat up the land, farm to your heart's content. Then once you're ready, you can come pick up Gundabad and head towards the ring through the center of the map this way. A lot of times, in my experience, you will end up fighting Gondor, as Gondor is either going to kill Mordor, or try to, or they're going to make an alliance with Mordor, which I think is the better way to play it, because that way neither faction gets bogged down in an early war. And Gondor is going to want to come take these southern territories and potentially push up into Arnor's land for Bree riders, at which point you will probably find yourself in conflict like on our server in this area of the map. Angmar versus Gondor. It's both of the Season 2s I've played have been Angmar versus Gondor fighting over Cardalan. And it's pretty crazy. So in Season 2, I think you're actually in a pretty respectable starting position, relatively safe. Season 1 and Season 3, not so much. Those are the seasons that are going to require a bit more of a silver tongue and a bit more of diplomatic work in order to secure your early game so that you can farm those tiles, grind up your heroes, and get your economy set for the big late game fights. All right, guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something useful. Let me know what you think about Angmar down in the comments section below. Are they an awesome faction, or do they have a hard time diplomatically? How do you rate their tier 4 unit? Whatever you want to talk about Angmar, let me know. I'll catch you in the next one. Rise of the Phoenix, over and out.